As I was watching some old Dragon Ball Z, I couldn't stop thinking to myself, how would old anime look like if it was animated today? With all the modern tools, the cinematic direction, and the crazy attention to detail that studios like MAPPA and Ufotable bring. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I have spent the last 3 weeks studying some original anime scenes frame by frame and reanimating 3 of the most iconic anime of all time. And honestly, the results came out crazier than I thought possible. With each of these shots, the first step was establishing a new vision, the foundation, if you will. We already know what happens if you don't have a good foundation, so this right here is make or break. You see, I'm not trying to fix the originals, I'm just trying to reimagine these shots through a modern lens. And the best way to get started is by doing some sketches of the shots. First up is Goku's Super Saiyan transformation. What's really impressive about the original is what the animators achieved with the tools of the 90s. We're talking hand-painted cells and a limited color palette, but still, they still made all the drawings feel alive. Arguably more than modern animation, especially with the recent developments in AI.
Like, imagine not having an undo button.
If you mess up, it's super over. Thankfully, I got that at my disposal. No AI though, fuck that shit. My goal was to take the original intent, which is epic and intense, and see how far I could push it with a modern digital workflow, which includes dynamic lighting and a full cinematic composite. For example, although I kept the original Frieza shock reaction animation the same in my version, I made some subtle changes to the drawings that give it a modern feel, like the shape of the face and the eyes. Still, I wanted to keep the same art style as the original, just with a modern touch. Then for Goku's Super Saiyan reveal, I wanted to do a pan-up shot with wind blowing on his clothes and hair as opposed to a wide still shot like in the original. I feel like if this was made today, this is precisely how it would be done. Now for One Piece, I actually tackled 2 different scenes. The first one is just a simple shot of Luffy eating, and this simple shot actually made it the perfect way to lock in the modern art style before jumping into anything else. So actually, I decided that it would be best to go ahead and completely finish this shot up on its own to see how it would look like completely finished in a modern art style, from the sketch, the colors, the background, and the compositing. And this is what I came up with. OG One Piece has no shading or any highlights, so doing this definitely made the shot look far more HD and more modern looking. I kind of ate this up, I'm not going to lie. However, this was the easiest of the bunch. It's only gonna keep getting harder from here. Pause. Once I had a taste of what I wanted this entire thing to look like, I moved on to his very first Gum Gum pistol, which is obviously much harder. I decided to go with this dynamic angle that is similar to the original, and I exaggerated smear frames that sell the force behind it. For the motion, I actually went frame by frame on the original shot so that I could get the movement just right, while simultaneously adding my very own touch regarding the art style and making some key changes to the overall flow of the cut. Then I moved on to a shot of Alvida getting punched in the stomach as a follow-through, which I decided to keep in the exact same angle. I actually cut out a couple of extra shots the anime had that are low-key pretty essential to the scene, but these 2 shots will have to do for now for this reanimation. And finally, I'm doing a scene of Naruto eating some ramen. This one, however, is not as simple as the Luffy shot I did earlier. You see, it has 3 parts. First, he drinks the ramen, then he puts the bowl down, and finally he looks up to his right. The original was simple and quiet, so my goal was to make it immersive, using soft lighting, shallow depth of field, and atmospheric effects to make you feel like you're sitting in that ramen shop right next to him. But we'll get to all that fun stuff in a bit. And obviously, no offense, but I feel like this shot right here of his face didn't really do my boy Naruto much justice, so my goal was to try to make him look a little bit better. And I think I did a solid job with that. Look at this handsome young man. With all the goals set and the keyframes sketched out, here's the first glimpse at how these reanimations are going to flow. With all the planning out the way, it was finally time to start polishing everything and getting my ideas out there. This is the most annoying and time-consuming part, but it's also one of the most important to get that modern look. For the Dragon Ball scene, I decided to go all in on clean and thin sharp lines to give it that super crisp modern HD look. I know lines with weight have increasingly become more popular over the years, but I still think that these sharp thin lines are extremely reliable, and every little line adds to that modern feel, especially in Frieza's expression. By adding some extra in-betweens with proper timing, it really made Frieza come to life, which is precisely what I was going for. For the Gum Gum pistol shot, I kept the same consistency with the main poses, but when it came to fast movements, that's where things got wild. The charm of this entire movement came in the form of very detailed and exaggerated smear frames, so I definitely knew I had to pop off with them. And honestly, I don't think I could have done any better. I'm really proud of how these came out. And that's the beauty of animating Luffy. You can really push the character model in the most exaggerated ways possible, and it will still look just right. And for the Naruto scene, my focus was on refinement. I wanted the expression to stay consistent while feeling more polished than the original, so I spent a little extra time on the in-betweens just to make the motion feel buttery smooth. smooth. After hours upon hours of drawing him over and over again, I was able to pull this one off. With all the line art and in-betweens done, here's how the animations are looking so far. No color and no compositing yet, just hours upon hours of line work. And with all that done, it was finally time to bring these scenes to life by adding the coloring and shading. Firstly, I started with the Naruto scenes. This shot needed to feel warm, cozy, and nostalgic. So I went with some soft tones and warm shadows, making the whole shot feel pretty chill. The early One Piece episodes barely had any shading at all, so one of my biggest goals here was to give these shots more dimension. This was achieved by adding proper shadows and highlights, completely changing how the scene feels. And suddenly, Luffy looks a lot more alive, like it could have been made by a modern studio today. Now for Dragon Ball Z, I focused on a modern color palette, vibrant but also balanced. The goal here was to make the colors pop without feeling oversaturated. I kept the shading itself pretty simple for now because the real transformation is gonna happen in the compositing. And just like that, all three scenes are colored and shaded. The characters, the energy, the emotion, everything is starting to come together. So here is how everything is looking so far. Now with all the scenes fully colored, this is where the real magic happens, compositing. This is the step that takes everything from looking good to looking absolutely bonkers. I started with Luffy's punch and I made a very intentional choice here. No crazy motion blur, no flashy effects, all of the impact in the shot is gonna come purely from the solid animation and one heavy camera shake on impact. It's clean, simple, and it's gonna hit hard. The compositing for this one didn't have to be extravagant to look absolutely gorgeous. However, for the Dragon Ball Z shots, I went in the complete opposite direction. I was really inspired by Ufotable's compositing style. I added subtle gradients across the characters, bright rim lights to make them pop, and I made Frieza's eyes glow red to add an extra touch that will make things look far more polished. For Goku's aura when he goes Super Saiyan, I hand drew the fiery shape, then warped it in After Effects with Turbulent Displace. On top of that, I layered particles, smoke, glow, and a subtle camera shake to tie everything together. As for the shot of Naruto in the ramen shop, I needed to add a soft hand-drawn breath effect as a little callback to the original. I noticed that in order to get this effect, I had to keyframe it and sorta just stretch it out, which was very simple. I then filled the air with tiny floating dust particles, and to finish it off, I threw a slight lens blur on the background for that shallow depth of field, making this entire shot look cinematic and modern. With all the shots composited in After Effects, I threw everything into DaVinci Resolve to color correct everything and add in the audio and sound effects. And with that, the transformation from old to modern was finally complete. So here are the final shots. Honestly, I felt like I learned a lot more doing this than I could have ever hoped for. I genuinely feel like this has been my most impressive project visually I've done so far. Breaking down these classic shots frame by frame taught me so much about timing, character acting, and what really makes a moment iconic, which makes me feel like I'm ready to make my very own original anime.